Not every exercise is suitable for every person. Be sure to consult with your physician before starting, stopping, or changing an exercise program. All participants of this or any exercise program assume the inherent risk of injury due to exercise. If at any time you feel pain during any type of exercise, stop and rest.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexis, host of your Priority One Fitness Show, and we're back. Are you ready? And this is the beginning of season 14. We've done a couple of episodes already, but this is our third episode in season 14. Oh my goodness, how many episodes is that? So you might remember our regular Diane over to my right, and you may remember, if you've been with us for a while, George, who's been with us for some seated exercises. So today we are going to focus on strength training. We're going to use some weights, but we already know that you don't have to. Not every exercise is fitting for every person. So if I ask you to try something and it causes pain, or it makes you a little bit anxious, or it just doesn't feel quite right, skip it. Who cares? We're going to give you plenty of options. So by no means do I expect anyone to push a square peg into a round hole. If you've got to skip it, skip it. And as always, what we do here, you can be done at home either sitting down or standing up. So Diane and George are going to give us some options today. Sometimes you'll see Diane doing the chair exercises. Sometimes you'll see George doing the chair exercises, and you make it work for you. So first and foremost, let's not work out on cold muscles. Let's get everything a little bit warmed up. We're going to start with a simple march. And don't worry about how fast or slow you go. We're not here to keep up with the music. We're just here to do a little bit of work, a little bit of warming up the bod with some simple marching. The knee comes up in the front, and hopefully the elbow comes back and behind the bod, back and behind. Let's just keep it right here. You're touching your heel down every chance you get as you march. And we're going to do 8 and 7 and 6 more and 5 and 4 and 3 and 2. Let's walk it up a little bit. And up, 2, 3, 4, take it back. 2, 3, 4, take it up. 2, 3, 4, take it back. 2, 3, one more time, and up. 2, 3, 4, take it home. 2, 3, keep it here, keep it here. Okay, when and if you're ready, I'm going to take a side step, and I step, touch, one side and the other. What we're looking to do is integrate the hips. We're looking to warm up the inside and outside of the internal and external hip. But you don't have to. Again, if this stresses you out, don't do it. You can stick with marching. We're going to walk it up a little bit. Let's take it up and up and up, and take it back 2 or 3 times, depending upon how much space you have. Okay, let's take it up a few times. Once again, we're warming up the hip as we step to the side, take it home. 3 and 2 and 1 more time. Take it up 3 times and 2 times, 1 time, take it back 3 times and 3 and 2 and 1, and keep it right here, and 5 and 5 and 4 more and 4. Easy taps for 3 and 3 and 2 and 2 and 1, and rest. Okay, go ahead and settle it in with those feet. Feet are flat on the floor, and if you're feeling safe, might I suggest trying to stagger the legs a little bit in a small lunge. So what I'm going to do is ask Diane to keep her what we call bar stool position, which means that her feet are hip width apart and her hips are slightly behind her as if she's leaning on a bar stool. We want the hips back rather than the knees forward. So remember, when you're standing, it's always hips a little bit behind the bod. So she's going to maintain that position. Feet in the center of the foot. Feet in the center of the foot. What am I talking about? Weight in the center of your feet. You should be able to wiggle your toes. Her knees are nice and relaxed, and her hips are relaxed as well. Now I'm going to ask George to stagger. Remember that lunge that I was suggesting? If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. We're going to see George take a step out of his boat and onto his dock. Now what you'll see here is that George has the weight in the center of his front foot. He has the center front foot, and what you can't see is that he could wiggle his toes if he wanted to. And everything is up and tall, and we can see that George is keeping his posture, and his shoulders are over the hips. So now let's take a look at what we're going to do. We're not using any weights at this point. Everyone is going to think about warming the bicep as we bring them up to the shoulder. We're going to keep those arms narrow. We're going to push up to your shelf. We're going to bring it back to your shoulder and down to your hip. We curl for the bicep. We push for the shoulder and chest. We bring it back and we set it down. And we curl, we push, we retract, and down. Curl for the bicep, push for the shoulders and chest, bring them back, and set them down. We're going to do 3, and to the shelf, and back, and down, and bicep, shoulder, chest, and back, and one more time. And we curl, and we push, and we're back, and rest those arms. Okay, George is going to go ahead and push through the heel, back out to C. And now George is going to remain standing, and Diane is going to show us the staggered leg. So Diane's going to take a step out of her boat and onto the dock. It doesn't matter which leg is which. Once again, when we take a look at that, her weight is in the center of the front foot. She's driving her body weight down into the floor through the center of the foot. She could wiggle her toes in the front. That means all of the weight is balanced in the foot and not the toes, not the toes. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing in the back of the body. Now, George is maintaining that parallel stance. So he already knows, weight in the center of the feet, knees are relaxed, and the hips are slightly back, leaning on that bar stool. We're going to lift the suitcases. We bring the elbows up and back. We're going to extend back to squeeze the back of the upper arm. We're going to bring the hands in, and we're going to set our bags down. So what we're doing is recruiting the back of the shoulder and the back of the upper arm. And I'm going to do this one with you. So when you're ready, we're nice and tall. We're going to pick our suitcases up. We're going to throw them away. We're going to bring them in, and we're going to set them down. Elbows up and back. Extend back to lock those bows. Bring the hands in and set them down. Elbows up and back. Lock those bows. Hands in and set them down. We use the back of the shoulder, the back of the upper arm, the hands retract, and we set the bags down. We pull for 3. We extend. We bring them in, and we set them down. Elbows up and back. Lock it tight. Bring them in, and one more time. Keep it narrow. Keep them close. Bring them in, and rest. Okay, now we're just going to go back into regular feet. Everyone's going to keep their parallel feet for this, and we're going to bring the arms up to the side. So I'm going to make sure I'm not whacking anybody. I'm going to do this one with you guys. Well, now we're thinking about the side of the shoulder, and then we're going to recruit the chest right after that. So we're coming up into what we call the T position. We're going to rotate slightly to bring those hands in, palm to palm. We're going to come back out, turn your palms down toward the floor, and then back to your sides. Shoulder height, here we go. And shoulder height, squeeze the chest, out to the side, and back down. The palms are down. The palms turn in. We bring it back to the T position and down. We squeeze the shoulders, we squeeze the chest, we bring them out, and we're doing 3 more. Side of the shoulder works, the chest muscles work. We bring them out, and we set them down. And we pull 2, and in, and out, and down. One more time. Bring them up, bring them in, set them out, and bring them down. Beautiful. Okay, now let's go ahead and get rolling. What we've done here is just do a little bit of movement for the low bod and a little bit of movement for the upper bod so that we're not working on cold muscles. We've warmed up things just a little bit, enough to stay limber. So on that note, I'm going to shuffle around a little bit here. I'm going to grab a chair, and Diane and George are going to grab their weights, and they're going to show you what's coming next. So while we're working, once again, as I mentioned, we're going to have one person seated for those of you who'd prefer to sit down. And for those of you who are looking for a little bit more today, you're going to follow the person who's standing. Now remember, you can do this any way you choose. You might decide that one exercise is standing, and you might decide another exercise is sitting down. Who cares? You're doing it, and that's what matters. So when she's ready, Miss Diane will take the throne. Okay, we're going to take a look at some simple bicep curls. So what we're looking to do is what we call the unilateral bicep curl. These guys are going to show you 1 and then 2. So we're going to note a few things as we go. Now, for those of us standing, I'm going to ask George to stay right like he is. So if we take a look at George's posture, again, he's got the weight in the center of the feet, relaxed knees, shoulders, and then hips over shoulder. So ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, and on down the line. I'm going to step back here so you guys get a view of what's going on. Now, when we take a look at Diane seated, she's in a hard-seated chair, so their hips are stabilized. We want a hard-seated chair. She's got her shoulders over the hips, which means she's never leaning against the back of the chair. She's relying on her body for that stability rather than that good old rounded back that we like to use when we're watching television. Well, watching everything but this show, right, kids? All right. So, when you're ready, go ahead and follow along with either player. You know you're up and tall, whether you're seated or you're standing. We're going to curl. They're going to bring one hand up to the shoulder, and as one descends, the other one comes up to the shoulder. And they're going to repeat 1 and 2. Okay, let's go ahead and bring all arms down, kids. And one hand up, and curl, and switch 3, 2, 1, curl, 3, 2, 1, curl, 3, 2, 1, curl. And we have 7. Elbows low and close, 7. Wrists are square, 6. Wrists are square, 6. Keep the elbow close to your waist for 5. Elbow close to your waist for 5. Note the low shoulder for 4 and low shoulders for 4. The low back is steady for 3. The wrists are square for 3. Everything for 2. And a controlled switch for 2. And they have 1. And they are done. And they rest. Okay, now we're going to go right into another one. While we're here, I'm going to have Diane stay in the chair. I'm going to have George remain standing, and we're going to take another look. So what else can we do? You know what we can do? We can ask George to work a little harder. What do you say we ask him to get into a lunge? So just as he did in the warm-up, he's going to step out of his boat and onto the dock. So note, once again, all of his weight is driven down into the center of the front foot. He's going to keep his torso and his spine nice and tall, meaning that all of the work is going to be in the arms. Just now, we did some bicep curls, which we know is the front of the bod. So now let's use the back of the bod. He's going to, in a moment, reach down in front of his hips, and he's going to get the lawnmower started by pulling the elbows back. He's going to pull back in a narrow fashion, and as he does, the muscles in the back of the body are squeezing together to use the back of the shoulder blade, the middle of the back, and the back of the shoulder. So he can rest his arms for a moment, but we are going to keep him in the lunge. So now Diane is going to perform the same exercise seated, but she's reaching down around the outside of her legs. So George standing is reaching in front of the hips. Diane is reaching at an angle down around the outside of her legs. Same deal though. She's going to stay nice and tall. Try to keep your low back steady. Now you can see shoulders over the hips and chin on that shelf. Keep your eyes on the road, kids. Okay, when they're ready, they're going to reach their arms down, palms in, and they're going to pull the arms back past the waist, elbows behind the body. And let's reach down, and here we go. They pull with a little bit of intention, and they release with control. The elbows come past the waist, and they reach with control. They pull 10, 3, 2, 1. They pull with intent, and they release with control. And they pull with intent, and the spine stays tall. They have 7, 3, 2, 1. Elbows close to the waist, and 6. Shoulders are low, and 5. Breeze right past your waist, and 4. Keep those elbows close, and 3. Work the back of that bod, 2. And one more time, kids, go ahead and hold. If you can, squeeze the ball between your elbows. 3, 2, 1. Rest the arms, and then you'll notice that after George rested the arms, then he stepped out of the lunge. So we want to be sure that we break the arms first, that we not break the arms, but we break that cycle first. We release the arms and then step out of your lunge. Okay, you're going to get a moment to take a break and shake it off a little bit because Diane and George are going to do a little switcheroo. And Diane is going to show us the standing exercises, and George will be seated for a few minutes. Now, once again, make sure it works for you. You might do some exercises standing. Your balance might be good for one and maybe not so hot for another. And that's okay. Who cares what we don't get done? We're only worried about what we do achieve. Everything else will be there to worry about some other day, but not today. So, just as we did a few minutes ago when George was standing, we're going to have Diane step out of the boat and onto the dock. We're almost there. We're halfway through. So, Diane, with a nice beautiful beautiful lunge, and now I'm going to ask you to try to use the side of your shoulder. So taking a look at George, he's going to bring the arms long just like Diane has them. And they're both going to raise their arms up to the side in the T position and then back down. Let's take a quick look. As Diane raises those arms up, she comes to shoulder height. The elbow is long but relaxed and her wrist is square. Go ahead and lower down for me, Diane. One more quick demo. If she weren't comfortable raising all the way up, then she would want to raise up only as high as she can keep that elbow long and that wrist straight. Okay, kids, shoulder height or lower. So when they're ready, we see George has flat feet, 90-degree knees, and he's sitting tall without relying upon that chair. So when you're ready, team, shoulder height or lower, and we pull. And we control the return to the hip. We're using the side of the shoulder. And 3, 2, 1. They pull 10. And 3, 2, 1. Nice low shoulders. And 3, 2, 1. Long elbows without locking them. 3, 2, 1. Up with intent for 7. And down with control. Up with intent for 6. And down with control. And they pull for 5. And control that descent. Shoulder height 4. And 3, 2, 1. Square, and 3, 2, 1, pull 2, and 3, 2, 1, pull 1, and go ahead and rest. Okay, kids, and you noticed, same thing. Without even thinking about it, Diane ended her arm exercise, and then she stepped out of her lunge. Always wise to do one or the other, never both. Not at the same time, it's just a little too much. So let's go ahead and ask Diane to step into her lunge on the opposite side. And just as she did, out of the boat, she's stepping onto the dock and she's stabilizing in the center of that foot. And the both of them, as always, are up and tall. We want to keep that chin on a shelf. Make sure your eyes are always on the road. One thing these two can do without even thinking about it is find proper posture. So what are we doing next? Let's go ahead and think about the front of the body again. Now this time we're going to use the shoulder. So what they're going to do is a little more unilateral work. Remember a few minutes ago when they used the bicep one at a time? Now they're going to use the shoulder. 1 and 2. Now let's take a look at the mechanics. You'll see it probably more so in Diane because she's standing, but she's going to avoid the desire to swing through her waist and swing through her waist. If you find that you need to use your lower back to do this exercise, maybe the weight is a little too heavy, or maybe it's just not the right time for that exercise. We want to keep that waist steady, Freddy. Keep the torso up and tall. Okay, team, when you're ready, the arms are down at our sides, long at the side, and we're going to keep those palms facing back. Let's raise one up to shoulder height or lower. And as the first one comes down, the second one goes up. And we control the waist. Up to shoulder height and up to shoulder height. And return to your hip 10. And return to your hip 10. Control the pass 9, 3, 2, 1, 9. The shoulders stay low 8. The elbows are long 8. The wrists are square 7. Wrists are square 7. You got your eyes on the road for 6. And return to the hip for 6. And a slow pass 5. And a slow pass 5. Using the front of the shoulder 4. 3, 2, 1, 4. 3, 2, 1, 3. 3, 2, 1, 3. 3, 2, 1, 2. Control that pass 2. Shoulder height 1. And shoulder height done. Rest. Okay, they're going to take a tiny break and they're going to pop up and put the weights aside for just a moment while you and I chat. So the next one we're going to take a look at doesn't have anything to do with weights, but it does ask for all of the muscles in your legs to work. Uh-oh, let's see what's coming. So we're going to look at one standing squat and one using the chair. So George and Diane are going to switch sides again. George is going to show us what it's like to perform the squat exercise, which is hips down and back into the seated position, and then back up. We're going to train those sitting and standing muscles. And Diane is going to give us an idea of what it looks like when you're not quite sure about maybe not sitting. If you're not sure about that, start from the chair. Remember, hard seated chair, always a hard seated chair. Now before we take off, I'm going to ask Diane to scoot her hips slightly forward toward the edge of the chair, but in a safe position. So let's take a look at what she's doing. When we ask her to do that, the reason we're doing that is so that she doesn't have to hike through her lower back to push up. She can use the strength in her legs. So in a moment, she will mentally connect her hips and her heels. As she stands, you'll see both of them keeping a ball between the knees on the way up and the ball between the knees on the way down. Try not to let those knees collapse in nor rotate out. We want to keep the hip, the knee, and the ankle in line with one another. So as we sit and stand, try to keep that ball between the knees. The other thing to take a look at is the hinges, making sure that we're hinging in the hips. So we'll take a look at Diane coming up from the chair first. So she's going to push up through her heels. She's going to reach for the shelf all the way up. And then as she sits, go ahead and rest those arms, hips down and back. So let's take one more look. She comes up through the heels, and as she sits, she leans back with the hip, and rest. Now, George is going to do exactly the same thing. However, he's not using a chair. He's going gangbusters. So we see George is in almost the full decline. Go ahead and stand up, but you don't have to. If you're leaning your hips back, they don't have to go all the way down and back. What we want to do is make sure we respect the mechanics of your bod. So even if you're not going all the way down and back, stick your butt out, keep your toes free. Never let your knee go past your shoelaces. Remember, when you sit and stand, you lead with your hips. Okay, kids, let's try it. So we're going to ask Diane to come all the way up so everybody's heading in the same direction. She's going to rest her arms so that we don't have to ask you to do a ton of work. But that was a good demonstration we used before. So now, George is going to lean back and down with the hips, and Diane is going to take it all the way down to the chair. So everybody up, and hips down and back. And 3, 2, 1, and up through the heels, and down through those hips, and up through the heels, and hinge in your hinges, and up through the heels 5, and hinge in your hips, and spine is tall 4, and spine is tall 4, and we push 3, and down and back through the hips. Keep the ball between the knees, keep the ball between the knees. One more time, we push. And 3, 2, 1, rest. Diane rests. George steps out of his squat because otherwise I would have kept him there all day. All right, everybody, we're going to grab the weights one more time. So once again, we're going to take a look at some weight exercises. We're almost home. We're going to do just a couple of them, and then we're going to call it a day. And they switched. Look, I didn't even have to ask. How lucky am I, huh? How lucky am I? They know what they're doing. Okay, so we have a handful of minutes left together, and we're going to try a couple more things. Not too hard. As always, if it doesn't make sense, skip it. Okay, let's get into the chest muscles. Now, we're going to take a look at Diane doing the bent elbow, and George is going to give us the long arm. What's different about these? Let's go ahead and set them up. So we're going to have George bring the arms out to the side. Diane's going to bring her arms into 90 degrees, and she's going to open them up. And we see here that the weight is just a little closer to the working muscle, which is the chest muscle. So she's going to maintain her 90-degree elbows, and she's going to bring them into parallel forearms. And then I'm going to ask her to bring them out and maintain that for just a moment. George is using the tougher option, but from the chair. He's going to bring his long arms in and close with parallel arms. Now the weight is further away from the working muscle, so it's tougher to do. So let's go ahead and set these guys up with their open arms, open position. And when they're ready, George pulls in through the heel of the palm, Diane pulls in through the elbows, and they control the return to their peripheral vision. And they pull smooth, and 3, 2, 1. Diane leads with her elbows, and George leads with the heel of his palm. And they pull in with intent, and they head back out to their peripheral vision. They're going to do their best of 7, 3, 2, 1. They're doing their best of 6, 3, 2, 1. Diane leads with the elbows, 3, 2, 1. George leads with the heel of the palm, 3, 2, 1. They're pulling in for 3, and 3, 2, 1. We have 2, and 3, 2, 1. And hold tight. Take a look, parallel forearms, raised elbow, low shoulders, 3, 2, 1, rest, rest. Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and set those weights down. We've covered a lot of ground today. So now let's take a few minutes and stretch. Let's stretch. Oh, the best part of every day. And we don't do it enough. It's definitely one of those underused things. I'm going to step out of the picture so that you can see what George is doing, and you can also see what Diane is doing. So just as they are in the positions they're in right now, I'm going to ask them to bring their palms up. They're going to open up the chest cavity. They're going to turn their palms down, and they're going to separate their shoulder blades. Now here, as the palms turn up, they open the chest, they let the air in, and they stretch the chest muscles. As the palms turn down, they reach slightly forward and they separate the shoulder blades. Smooth motion, kids. Palms up and let that air in. Palms down and separate those shoulder blades. We're going to do 3 more. Open those chest fibers and palms down and separate the shoulder blades. And they're going to bring it up and out for 2. And they're going to close down and in for 2. One more time, and I'm going to ask them to hold. The palms are up and they're letting all the air in, stretching the chest fibers. 3, 2. They're going to flip their paws and they're going to reach slightly forward at an angle. Seated, we can see George has less of a round in his spine. All he's looking to do is separate those shoulder blades. Diane has a little bit more of a round, but again, her toes are still free. 3, 2, and 1. Let's do a little rowing, kids. Let's just circle those arms. We're almost home. So this limbering exercise at the end just serves to keep things nice and warm. We're not looking to do too much more. Let's go ahead and switch. We're going to reverse and they're going to swim. And we see them lift the shoulder blades up along the back, trying to keep nice, strong mobility, keep everything warm for 4 big circles. We have 3 big circles, and he lifts and he swims 2, and he lifts and he swims 1, and we rest, and we rest. Okay, so when you're ready, we're going to do maybe just a little stretch for the legs. You think you got it in you? George is going to bring one leg out with his heel down in front of him and his toe up. Diane is going to take that small step forward. And now she's going to think about a small step. She took a step forward, but what I'm going to ask her to do is sit back a little bit on that back leg. So we can see that as she sits back, her hip comes back and she's looking to stretch the back of this leg. So Diane is in this position. Now, George will hinge slightly forward through the hip, and you're stretching the hamstring, stretching the hamstring. You don't have to. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. We're going to hold 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. Let's go ahead and switch positions. We're almost home, everybody. 1 foot out. Diane's going to sit back on that hip. George is going to lean slightly forward. Thank you so much for coming out today, ladies and gentlemen, or at least for getting out of bed. I'm Alexis. This is your Priority One Fitness Show. Thank you, George. Thank you, Diane. And thank you to the people behind the camera who make it possible. Check us out online. Find us on DVD, priority1.us. Priority1.us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Consult with your physician before starting, stopping, or changing an exercise program. All participants of this or any exercise program assume the inherent risk of injury due to exercise. If at any time you feel pain during any type of exercise, stop and rest.